Hello guys, Oliver here, and it's raining. So if you hear some noise, it's because of the rain. Um the subject of today is war, an alternative sociological view and method. Sociology can be seen in a way as an evolution towards individualism. From Kant or Comte, it's French, so it's probably Comte or Comte, to Durkheim, we note a tendency towards the social, having its pinnacle in Karl Marx and socialism. So, from Comte, Durkheim, etc., and in Karl Marx, we can see a tendency to focus sociology as the study of the social, not the individual. But reading Max Weber from Germany, I noticed a new direction that tends towards individualism. In this text, I will try to bring this tendency to my philosophy and present it as a new way of doing philosophy, when the subject is collective or social fact. Because in the end, every fact can and must be studied by philosophy. Philosophy is the study of the studies, the parameter, the methodological, scientific, and analytical. All other forms of study come from philosophy and end in philosophy. Just as Durkheim presented his sociological method and then applied it in his book on suicide, I present here my philosophical method and will apply it in a small study on war. I choose war because it fulfilled the requirements of being social and being well known, so we can have a small scope without needing to contextualize too much. For this text, or a large one if I want to revisit the subject with greater scope in the future. I mean, war is a subject that we all know, so I don't need to explain too much because you know already. And also, if I want to come back to the subject in the future, it will have a lot more to talk about because war is such a complex subject. And the last reason is that it fits perfectly with my weekend. I spent my weekend playing paintball with friends and family, which means it would be a interesting video to follow along with college stuff. War, as we know it, is the moral struggle between individuals for a common triumph. Even if it's manipulated by men of power, still each individual, the conflict is determined to kill or be killed. I mean, war is the conflict, is the battle by soldiers, and each soldier is determined to kill or die by the triumph, by the cause, by the meaning of the war, defend or attack. But not necessarily is the civilians, politicians, cleric, or kings who ordered the war, they are not necessarily they don't necessarily have the same disposition to kill or die. But the soldiers, they do have. So I will read it now. On the other hand, those who actually govern such a war, whether civilians, kings, politicians, or clerics, are generally unwilling to kill or be killed for such causes, and they are not present in the battle. I mean, those who order it or manipulate the war are not presented physically in the battle. In this view, or in this new method, we can analyze, probably by interview, each individual that composes the social fact, from the soldier on the battlefield to the politician who orders the battle, taking care to fulfill distinctions such as those made by Durkheim, where psychologists or psychologists are the ones who study the individual. That is, we must study the individual keeping the social context as a whole. In other words, to make use of the individual to reach the social through him. I mean, we must study the individual, but keep in mind and have the focus on understanding the social, not the individual. Because to understand the individual, just like Durkheim said, is the task of psychology. For it, if studying the social facts is studying reality, we must keep in mind that reality is the reality of each individual, not really as a whole. It was presented by Kant that the reality can only be seen or studied by the perspective of the individual, not as a whole. The dictator sees the world through a dictator's eyes, and the soldier through a soldier's eyes. So the dictator see the world and have the motivations of a dictator, but the soldier see the world by the eyes of a soldier and have the motives or the motivations of a soldier. The interviewer, the sociologist, must try to see the world through the eyes of both or everyone. So if you are studying the case, the social fact, you must study and interview and try to present the perspective not only of one individual but as a whole. But you only can do that by the perspective of an individual. It's not on a text, but I will quote 𝖉'𝕁, who said that between individuals there is only empty spaces. So to understand a social fact is to understand individuals. To conclude, you must not, if you want to follow my new method, you must not focus on a study of the Second World War, but the soldiers or the politicians or the kings or the individuals of the Second World War. If you want to study the Ukrainian war, you must not study the Ukrainian war as a whole, but the individual in the Ukrainian war. It's not the best or the total or the most important and unique method, but it is definitely a method that must be applied, because you can't study the social, you can't talk, you can't interview the social. And Max Weber talked a lot about interviews. You must interview to take the history, to take notes on history, to take notes on sociology, to take notes on philosophy and poetics. You must interview. Because if you only think and imagine, you can be wrong. And if you only analyze as a whole, you can be wrong too, because analysis comes from your mind, and your perspective of reality can maybe be wrong. So interview is crucial, and it fits perfectly with my intentions on life, which is philosophy and journalism. I mean, by journalism, interviews. So that is it. See you in the next video.